All right, welcome everyone. You join
Hello.
us. You join us in a slightly poignant episode of this because this is our final journey into the world of Star Trek, I guess, for now at least, anyway.
No.
Yeah, this is the Undiscovered Country. We're going to be talking about Star Trek 6. And, well, I mean, I'm going to let MauLer obviously share his thoughts on it in just a second. I will say that generally, in terms of the pantheon of Star Trek movies, there's the Wrath of Khan, which I think is almost unanimously agreed to be the best of the Trek movies, and then Undiscovered Country is generally coming in at a close second. That's probably my assessment of it as well. I've got a lot of fond memories of this movie and a good feeling towards it. I think it covers a lot of interesting topics. I think it gives a really nice, poignant farewell to the original crew as well. And, well, I've babbled on long enough. I guess, MauLer, you've seen it in advance of this. We're obviously going to watch it together and talk about it, but what was your assessment of the film, just as an initial thought?
So being told that this is one of the good ones, I'm like, great, because I do enjoy these characters. I enjoy this world. I'm much more into watching films that are good. And I think by about a third in, I was already very impressed by the structure of the story. This felt very deliberate and like they probably redrafted. They knew what they were doing. They've created a premise that I find infinitely interesting. And I was having a thought of like, if they can maintain this and have some really good emotional payoffs, this could very well beat out Wrath of Khan for me. Now, by the time you get to the end, I felt like there's a couple inconsistencies we can talk about that sort of messed with my perspective of the overall story. But there's plenty of things that I appreciate this does as the sort of final voyage for this team. I also love the name Undiscovered Country after having seen the film. There's just so many ways it applies. As well as I love everyone's performances. I love plenty of what they choose to do in the story. But the way I would compare it is that whether or not this is more consistent overall than Wrath of Khan, which I'm not even sure about, Wrath of Khan has higher highs for me. I felt more from watching that than I did from this. But at the same time, this was a very good entry and easily takes the slot of number 2. In the 6. It's very, very, very good. Easy recommendation for any Star Trek fan, at least from my POV. Which, I'm getting there, seeing more and more.
Yeah, you're gradually becoming a Trekkie. And honestly, like that, I breathed a sigh of relief because for anyone watching this, like we were talking for a good hour before we actually started recording here. We did not bring up the topic of this movie at all. Like I specifically didn't want to ask MauLer about it before we started recording. So I had no idea. You might have come in and absolutely shat on it. So I'm relieved that you enjoyed it. And I think there's definitely things you can pick apart in terms of some inconsistencies. And I'm sure we'll get to that point. But I'm glad that overall you enjoyed it. And I think for me, there was something like, there's always going to be something poignant about a group of characters like saying goodbye, going on their last little adventure together. And it was pretty well handled, I think, in this. Like it handles that emotional aspect of like saying goodbye to them pretty well. I can tell you, and you probably looked at this up yourself, but the movie had a pretty troubled development. The initial premise that I think Harv Bennett wanted to go with was, and he was the producer. He'd been producing like the previous movies since Wrath of Khan. He wanted to do like a prequel where it was going to be the set around Star Trek or Starfleet Academy, and it was going to have younger versions of all the characters. It was going to be bookended by, I think, McCoy giving a speech to young cadets, and it would be how they all met each other, that sort of thing. Paramount were not interested in that, and so he walked away from the whole project. He was just done, I think, by that point, and he was kind of burned out with making Star Trek movies. So the question then was what to do next. They didn't really have an idea, but they knew, hey, the cast are getting older now, and it's probably time to say goodbye to them. It's the Next Generation TV show was roaring success by that point, and they were already putting their minds forward to having them take over with the movies. So how do we say goodbye to these original crew? Walter Koenig apparently pitched an idea that just sounded absolutely batshit crazy. Whereas, like the whole crew were going to be like forcibly retired because they didn't meet the fitness standards Then a war was going to break out between the Federation and the Klingons, and the Romulans were going to join in. And Spock was going to lead a mission, but he would get captured by some gigantic space worms, him and his crew. And so Kirk and the others had to come out of retirement and save him. And then everyone would die apart from Spock and McCoy. So needless to say, Paramount were not too enthusiastic about that idea. Then I think Leonard Nimoy went to Nicholas Meyer, who'd directed Wrath of Khan, and went to basically spent the weekend with him, said, what the hell can we do here? And pitched the idea of, like, can we have something like the Berlin Wall coming down, but in the Star Trek universe? And he immediately seized upon that. That's genius. Love it. Like, the Cold War was ending at that point. It was like the early 90s. Let's try and mirror that in the Star Trek universe and have the Klingons, no longer be the antagonists. They're gonna end this Cold War that's existed, and it'll bring the Star Trek universe in line with the Next Generation. And that was pretty much it. The plot just kind of fell into place really quickly then, and they were able to bang it out. Really within a matter of weeks. They obviously refined it quite a bit over the next several months. Gene Roddenberry objected to pretty much every aspect of it, but by that point, no one cared what he thought, so they basically ignored him, and they forged ahead with it. And this is the movie that we ultimately got, and I'm glad that they did. The allegories are pretty on the nose at times.
Yep.
You've basically got the Chernobyl disaster is just the explosion of the Klingon moon. The collapse of the Soviet Union is just mirrored in the collapse of the Klingon Empire, and Gorkon is basically just stand-in for Mikhail Gorbachev. But I think it makes it work in a way that doesn't feel too forced. It makes sense in universe. So
yeah, and there's
I did like
plenty to take advantage of to make for a really interesting story. There's a lot of choices they make that are really interesting from a perspective of just Star Trek. It's something that was struck to me immediately, even when watching any part of this film, is just like thinking about the first one and how far even the 6 films have come for changing style, figuring out where they're at. And it's in a way bittersweet, because if this were the guaranteed amount of entertainment I could get from any Star Trek movie, I wouldn't want them to stop. I'd want them to keep going forever. This is
I know,
plenty of interesting scenarios with fun characters and stuff, and it's but at the same time you have to do the thing of like, you know what, I'm glad it ended on a high.
Done on a pretty small budget as well, because they were pretty cautious after the Final Frontier being kind of a flop. They weren't willing to spend a huge amount of money on this. So a lot of the sets are actually from the Next Generation. They just redressed them slightly.
Well, something I read was that, Leonard Nimoy trying to develop the story would have, and I think it was said like under other circumstances he very well would have directed it, but that they agreed with he agreed with the executives that if they did that, it would piss off William Shatner, who was already pretty sore at the fact of what happened to the Final Frontier. It's like, yeah, well. And
Nimoy had done 2 movies already, so if he got a third one, that's probably a bit much. So, they were able to bring Nicholas Meyer back, and he did a really good job. Like, if you're going to bring a guy in to helm the final movie, you might as well bring in the guy who directed the best movie in this series so far.
I do wonder if the famous and iconic quotes from Khan bled into a bit of an overcompensation on quotes in this film.
Yeah. Chang is obviously very fond of his Shakespeare.
Yes. In the original Klingon.
Exactly, yeah, which is still has me scratching my head, but okay. But I think that probably the best thing to do is launch ourselves right into this one, and we can start talking about it as we go.
Yeah, alrighty.
How does that sound? Okay, well, I'm ready. If everyone at home has got their copy of Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country, then get it ready to go. And I will count us down. 3, 2, 1, go. Alrighty, lovely Paramount logo there.
I was going to say that because you mentioned Gene Roddenberry was kind of getting ignored at this point. One of his issues that I saw was that he felt that the Klingons were used as generic villains and their cultural viewpoints were never really explored, which I thought was an interesting criticism, because I don't feel that the humans or the Klingons or Romulans or anybody are really explored to that depth. It's more of a as you said, like the end of the Cold War. How does that work almost politically? And I thought that they did like absolutely fine representing a lot of Klingon characters in a way that made them nuanced, you know?
And well, you get to see that there's different factions within the Klingon Empire. There's different ways of thinking. You've got the hardliners who just want to straight up go to war with the Federation and take their chances. You've got like the much more moderate elements like Gorkon who see an opportunity to forge a peace. And it's the same within the Federation. There's hardliners who don't trust the Klingons. There's other people who want to make a deal. And then there's people like Kirk who are stuck in between. You know what's interesting as well, when they talked about the sound design, the soundtrack and stuff for this movie, right off the bat they wanted to go for a darker and more sinister tone.
I definitely got that impression. I was like, "Ooh, this feels a bit."
Yeah, we'll contrast this with like Star Trek 4. You know, this is just it's a world of difference. I will say as well, Kim Cattrall, who plays Valeris here, they originally wanted her role to be Saavik. And that is one thing that Gene Roddenberry got his way on. He was vehemently against the idea that Saavik would betray the Federation. And so they wrote this new character of Valeris to replace her. Which is a shame, because it would have been interesting to see what they would have done with Saavik in that position.
There's an awkward problem that they had to solve here that comes across in so many stories where it's like there's a betrayer on board, and us as the audience are like, okay, it's not going to be any of the main cast because just justifying that's going to be impossible. It's also not going to just be a random crew member because that would be boring. So who fits the bill? It's like, I don't know, the brand new character that is getting a lot of screen time, that is got a connection with one of the main characters. Like, it felt unfortunate watching it because I was like, it's obviously her. I was like, it's going to be impossible for them to hide this.
Yes.
I still appreciate it, though. They tried.
They did their best, yeah. They gave her a reason for being there, at least, because she was Spock's protege. Again, like a younger version of him that he wants to succeed him.
Oh, and I think it might be my favorite payoff in the film, actually, the mind meld scene. We'll talk about it when we get there, but the performances are fantastic from both of them.
Oh, yeah, Nimoy in particular, like, wow, he conveys a whole lot without actually saying anything.
Well, and it's gonna, again, probably talk about it when we get there, but just it solidified for me, like crystallized the understanding of Spock's character versus what they do with him in the JJ films.
Oh, God. Don't even talk about them here.
It's just such a, like, that scene is like a fucking blueprint of how to properly approach emotional Spock. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But yeah, I actually thought Kim Cattrall was pretty cool in this film. She did a pretty good job.
She gives a good performance, I think. I've got Sulu here on the Excelsior. He finally got to realize his dream piloting it. And it works this time. It didn't have that weird sputtering car engine sound when it tries to use its warp drive.
I think someone I saw as a notation as well is this is the first of the Star Trek films that has actual screens in the background instead of like images of what we would assume as screens.
I think other movies had done it. Like they
I
had
could have sworn I read that, but maybe it's wrong. But I maybe it's the particular screens they were using. But I remember being struck by how dynamic all of the stuff in the background was looking. I know it's all going to be random shit, but you know.
I know they made a point of it being like intelligible, so it wasn't just gobbledygook. They wanted the controls and stuff to actually look real. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the fact that Sulu's on a different ship from everyone else, I think, is had a lot to do with the interpersonal stuff between him and Shatner. He just didn't want to share a scene with him.
Well, don't they have a back and forth at one point in this movie? Like, thank you, Captain Kirk. He's like, thank you, Captain Sulu. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I wonder if they hate each other.
They absolutely did, yeah. But I mean, they obviously weren't even addressing each other like the two actors. They would have just been reacting to a blank screen. So this is where we discover the first inkling that something is wrong within the Klingon Empire.
Mm-hmm. They've had their own Chernobyl.
Yep.
But yeah, the crazy like factoid about this with Gene Roddenberry, from what I gather, was he died 2 days after watching like a early cut of it, right?
Yeah.
Some
It
I
killed him.
really quite. I mean, I like the idea that he got to see it though. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, like say goodbye to his characters and stuff. The blonde woman that you saw on screen there, that was Yeoman Rand from the original series. She keeps showing up in like these movies just for a little cameo.
Oh, all right, yeah, fair enough.
It's funny because like they're all ensigns and stuff on the bridge, and like they're young people obviously because they've not moved up the rankings, but she's like 30 years older than everyone else.
It is kind of funny to have the clip of like, oh god, everything's on fire.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Everything's
My planet just blew
fine.
up. This is classic like Soviet era propagandic bullshit. Like like at Chernobyl, it might have been like, oh, there was a minor fire at Chernobyl today, but not to be alarmed. Everything is fine.
It is unfortunate when you read about the behind the scenes of a lot of these films that like there's so much ego shit that you got to get to deal with before you can make the thing everyone is here for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we all want to have fun.
Actors can be a bit egotistical, I suppose.
Well, and producers and even writers, directors. It's just all over the place because everyone wants stuff. But ultimately, like you'd hope, don't we all want Star Trek stories where we can be inspired and enjoy this, that, and the other? So it is a miracle we got 6, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Now, I want to point out as well, Nicholas Meyer, mirroring what he did with Wrath of Khan, he wanted a very militaristic tone for Starfleet because they kind of reduced that down in previous movies, but you can see here that just the way this briefing is conducted, it is very much like a US military briefing.
Yeah,
I'm all in favor of that. I think that's kind of what Star Trek or Starfleet would have been like at this point.
Yeah, I don't. I find this all very interesting when they do it this way.
There we are. There's Spock. We obviously know that. Oh, I'll let this scene play out first. Nimoy's looking pretty old now.
Yeah, there's always something about it almost makes him look older. The fact that his hair is like jet black because his face is so much older than it, like draws attention. The thing is, though, and it's recognized by everybody, he's just so fucking good as Spock.
Yep. Zachary Quinto, like I think he's a good actor, but he can never be Spock. Just as Chris Pine can never be Kirk in the way Shatner was.
I'd like to believe there's maybe an actor out there that could do a job that makes me think, oh wow, you really did a good job there. But like, yeah, these two can't even be compared to by their follow-ups. In the way that Magneto and Charles Xavier, their follow-ups I actually think were excellent.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously, these two roles are far more legendary, so to speak, but I still think that there were people probably better suited. And it could be the direction, to be honest with you, too, but very unique actors inhabiting very unique roles here, and they did them well. So it's tough to beat them.
I actually love this scene. I love like we get to see the conflicting perspective of Kirk. We already get to see elements within Starfleet that want to really hammer the Klingons, as Cartwright says there. Like we've got an opportunity to bring them to their knees, then we'll be in a better position to dictate their terms.
Yeah, and the fact that he goes from being antagonistic to this whole concept to you're the one that's going to be organizing, their safety. Yeah. Show good faith, which is really good for drama later. The fact that Spock is the one that's essentially orchestrated this. and you're going to feel a lot of guilt for that later.
Well, the scene that's just coming up where the rest of the room clears out and it's just Spock and Kirk, right? This is superb staging, superb writing, superb performances. It all comes together so well. I'll just let it play out, actually.
Yeah. Those at home, sometimes we just want to enjoy a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that they choose to remain at opposite ends of the table, like that distance between them, even though they're friends. I like that. I think Kirk's got a very real. Oh, I love that delivery there. Let them die.
So
see the disappointment in Spock's face when he says that. Just the reaction shot from Nimoy there, where he's like, "I really expected better from you here." And this is
what's interesting about that is, I don't know if you know, but William Shatner was annoyed because the way they edited that. The original shot is him saying "let them die," and then he immediately regrets saying that, like body language, and you can kind of see the end of it when they cut back to him, but they cut over it with a Spock reaction, which William Shatner was very annoyed with because he didn't like.
No, I much prefer that.
Well, I think it's both are fine. I can buy that Kirk would say everything that he just said, and I believe that he would come to a more nuanced and rational perspective at certain points. And we both know when watching this film that how it goes down is not what he wanted.
No. You know what I love about this film as well? This brings to a close like the arc that Kirk has been on since Wrath of Khan. You know, that movie was all about the angst of a middle-aged man and his fear of getting older. And when we get to this point, now he just actually is old. And, you know, you can see it visually, like whether it was a choice on Shatner's part or not. Like, you know, he's quite obviously put on weight. His hair is going grey, you know, and he's a kind of bigoted, reactionary old man now. You know, he's afraid of a changing world. He can't let go of his prejudice against the Klingons. Like this is a man struggling with the world shifting beneath him, and I think it's such an interesting aspect of his character to explore.
Yeah, and I think it matches really well.
And this is what I meant by how you can do flawed characters like this with all the human failings that we experience now, but have it be understandable and justifiable based on what he's experienced.
And I like these kinds of challenges to deliver to characters like that we've come to know so well. So what would be a difficult thing for him to have to deal with? And it's like, well, you know, this would be one of them.
Yep.
Look, they're all back in their position.
They're doing their thing. This is very much like a tour of their greatest hits.
Isn't that funny, though? Compare that exit of Space Dock compared to the first film.
Oh, yeah, which took about 2 hours by itself. I think they probably could have spun it out a little bit because I think Wrath of Khan found the perfect balance where it's like still like quite an involved technical.
I was struck by how fast that one was. I was like, that's the fastest we ever done anything.
Because, you know, we're 14 minutes into the movie, right? And we're kind of moving along pretty quickly. There's a lot that we've got to take in.
The premise is basically done now. We've got it.
Yeah. You know what? It's even interesting little things, right, about the set design here. Look how Spartan his quarters are. There's not much in the way of comfort or anything. It's just very bare metal, cramped.
Yeah.
Like this is not a guy who's like living in luxury or anything. This is a very militaristic, simplistic kind of way of life. And he's the captain of the ship. You should have, like, I guess, the best quarters. The one thing I will say about Kim Cattrall's performance here, I do feel like she's holding in a smile a lot of the time. Maybe showing a bit more emotion than you would expect.
That's probably fair. Did you know that she chose her hairstyle and she did it to make the ears more prominent?
Yeah, I remember
So
Shatner talking about that, like having to shave the side of her head off, or
she's with what little I know about it, because I don't know much about a lot of the work that she's done. She does seem like an actress who's willing to do some stuff that most actresses wouldn't.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
just thought it was
fair.
cool. She chose the name too. It's based on Eris, like Valeris, name of a Greek goddess of strife, to try and hint at her
Oh, okay.
character's role. Yeah, which is just like,
It's like, so you've got
okay.
like classic. You've got some classic education there. Because yeah, I think most people probably know her from, I don't know, Sex and the City or something. Like,
Yeah.
very different sort of character. And
Well, do
yeah,
you know about this? Is a rumor I read, and I was like, I can't resist not mentioning this to Drink, especially with these two sharing a scene. So apparently, it was long rumored that when filming, near the end of production, she posed fully nude while wearing only her Vulcan ears on the bridge, and reportedly Leonard Nimoy found out and was furious, and he forced her to turn over the film and destroyed it. And then they've been asked, apparently, in different interviews where they both deny that this ever happened. And then in 1992, she was asked again, and she said, I can't talk about any of that. Damn it, Leonard.
You dick.
And yeah, by the way, this is another reason why I was like, it's so obvious she's the bad guy if he's like, you're going to be my successor.
Yeah,
like,
I'm putting all my faith in you. This was actually, this battle cruiser here, it's the same model that they used for the very first Star Trek motion picture about 12 years earlier. It's a very cool ship, actually. I do like it. Because yeah, you saw obviously the Bird of Prey quite extensively in Star Trek 3 and 4. The battle cruisers, though, are a different deal. Those are the big boys that they bring out when situations get really serious. Like even Kirk is kind of scared of it.
Come on, Kirk, get going. This does feel a bit like Spock's, like, don't fail me now. Come on, I believe in you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't do something crazy like put the shields up and then go to red alert. There you go, David Warner, back again.
So, because I had never seen these movies before, you know how it goes. I was like, "Oh, sweet!" Because previous movie, he's in it for like 5 seconds. I was like, "Okay." This movie was like, "Oh, there you go," and you get a good, decent chunk of him in this. But I was still like, "Oh, damn it!" when he died.
Yeah,
here he goes.
but he actually gets to do something meaningful for a change. So yeah,
yes,
it's nice.
Well, I quite like his just the character in this film. He's super important to the whole plot.
I love that reaction from Kirk there, where he's inviting him over half-heartedly, thinking, they'll never accept. And then Gorkon's like, sure, we'll come over. Kirk's almost like, fuck, what have I done?
Do you think this was a sabotage move on her part?
What, to get them drunk?
Maybe to hope that they would get loose-lipped enough to say something to each other. Get a bit of tension rising, because the funny thing is you can go both ways with alcohol, right? It can be something that gets people along with each other, or it can end up making people say stuff that they wouldn't normally.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was more just just working within the confines of the situation they're dealing with. She was just trying to facilitate things. I don't think she was probably hoping that it would result in any actual conflict. They still had their own plan to take care of Gorkon and the others.
Mm-hmm.
I love how his cane is just a gigantic fucking tooth from some monster. Must admit, the outfits are pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
I'd look at that guy and it's like, that's not a dude I want to mess with.
I quite like David Warner's presence. It was a good fit for the role. I kind of regret not seeing him more stuff because I mainly know him from Titanic, which I was always very quite liked him in that, even though the role is one-dimensional somewhat.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer there,
who definitely
actor.
jumps right into this. He's
Oh yeah,
he's going for it, and I love it. And these two, as far as I'm aware, have a history, right? Of Shatner was his understudy in like theater.
oh, I don't actually know.
I remember reading some bits and bobs about it, but it was part of why Plummer was interested in doing this.
I mean, I'd seen Plummer from movies in like the 60s and 70s, you know, when he was obviously a much younger man. But yeah, this seems kind of outside of what he would normally do.
Yes, I was actually
Well,
surprised it was him in the makeup. I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, fine.
But
I
he
thought
looks
Plummer would
cool.
play like, yeah, he does. I thought he'd play some, you know, Federation upper level person.
I wonder if those guys are going to be significant at some point.
Hmm. Yeah, because this stuff, you get drunk almost instantly, right, from drinking it?
It's meant to be really like the most potent stuff you can get. Yeah. Because like none of them really act drunk, so I assume they take it pretty easy. But yeah, they complain later about hangovers and stuff. This set is actually from The Next Generation. I think this is like the observation room, and they just had to redress it slightly again because they were a bit short on budget, so they had to cannibalize a lot of sets, but also not destroy them because the TNG series was still running.
Something I've come to understand is that dinner scenes are just brilliant for tension.
Oh yeah. You can have a lot going on there.
And yeah, so the notion
Kirk's
of
knocking it back there.
Well, and that's something I actually kind of like. This is what I mean. I feel like these films take advantage of every little action, and big actions are all indicative of characters. Sometimes I don't think they get it quite right, but a lot of the time they really do. And I think he sees alcohol as such a fucking, you know, like, thank goodness we got this so it can get me through it.
Yeah. Apparently, like, see the food that they've got there, like, it was like a squid that was dyed blue to make it look suitably alien. And, like, obviously, as they were shooting this for several hours, like, under the hot lights, like, it was starting to decompose a little bit, but they had to have shots of them eating it. And so the crew apparently were trying to engineer moments where they had to get, like Shatner and the others to eat some of it so they could catch it on screen. That's pretty good.
I guess if you were directing a fucking, you know, dinner scene, you're gonna want to at least show someone eating something.
Yeah.
So this is already interesting to me immediately. The idea that he's like the anti-Kirk, or rather, the reflection of him on the other side.
Yes.
And that you know, that makes for a very, very good foil.
All of his dialogue with Kirk is like probing, and it's trying to either provoke him or get some sort of reaction out of him, or just dig a little deeper into his psyche. Like, this is a guy who very much knows who he's up against.
And yeah, I appreciate this too. It's like, can we talk about like what's happening instead of fucking around?
I like this line.
And Spock's like, what the fuck? Why would
he just drops that in there? See, the Klingons might not even get that reference, but again, this is why I love Kirk so much, because he's not necessarily going to be quoting Shakespeare and stuff, but he can hit back with his rejoinders pretty effectively. Very prescient.
Good line.
He very much gets to the heart of Kirk as well, and like what his issue is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've all lived our whole lives in this world, and it's changing quite rapidly, and we're the ones who are going to struggle the most with it. And I recognize that you are not trusting us.
So antagonistic. So this is definitely not it would be better. Just I would like to see the alternate version. Another thing that was happening as this film progressed was I was like, it's gonna be Chang who's behind all of this, obviously. I kind of wish to see the version where he absolutely isn't the one behind it, and he's a red herring, that he's actually antagonistic toward Kirk because of their histories, because of what they've done, but the fact they're mirrors, and that by the end they could possibly work together, both of them sort of understanding they've been played.
I think that'd be a very interesting movie. Yeah, a very interesting idea.
He makes for a really good villain anyway, but you know
he does. Yeah, it could have just as easily been Gorkon's daughter or something. Yeah.
And it's good we haven't forgotten his son. We need to make sure that's probably recognized. Kind of a big deal.
Shame that, kind of a shame that the Final Frontier forgot him.
So I mean, it can be difficult. I grant that for writing, but like once that's happened, you've got to keep it as a thing. Because like the fact that he turned the photo away, I think that's great. Like he feels ashamed.
I like Kirk's clearly like feeling the effects here, and he was just going to go sleep in his uniform. Yeah. You having to get back on duty while drunk.
So that'd be the ship below them right now, right?
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Oh dear. Bad stuff is afoot.
But yeah, I think it was at this point in the film that I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. This is going to be cool because whatever's happening here is interesting.
And again, the panic that takes hold here is really well done. Like, nobody understands what the hell is going on. Now, I will say, like, the zero-G bits are good, but I don't love the fake blood. Like, I think they hadn't quite got the blood effects down.
There's two things to it, right? One, it's about ratings. The reason the blood looks like it does, I'd imagine. Like it's we've had to deal with that in so many movies. They make it a bit more goopy and a bit less colored like blood to get away with certain things. But two, the blood is plot relevant, which is, by the way, the implication I got immediately from this scene was seeing the blood. I was like, why would they risk a higher rating when they don't usually do that at all? And then I was thinking to myself, like, oh, because the blood's it's gonna lead to something. The blood's gonna trail in somewhere, and it's kind of funny how you can figure that sort of thing out, because
these like phasers can vaporize you instantly. So it's like if you really are shooting to kill, like that's what you would do.
Well, yeah, I thought it was weird that they shoot the arm off one of the guys, and then they don't kill him. Yeah. I guess it's in a way it's good to have witnesses because they want to make this. They want to know, like everyone to know, because they're framing Kirk, and it would be Bones. They're trying to get across that it was. Were they trying to argue it was those two right now, or that they were orchestrating it?
They orchestrated it, yeah, and then they beamed aboard as cover to try and disguise what they did. The plan does rely on the idea that some of the senior officers, including Kirk, would actually go over to that ship and put themselves at risk.
I get it. I found it like, I think you could argue that's very in character because it's a very wild decision. Spock advises against it, but it's a very Kirk decision to be like, I was not fucking involved, and this is proof, okay? But then you have to accept that they're going to arrest you.
Yeah, I mean, I did wonder if maybe like Kirk might have just warp speeded out of there. It's like, yeah, I'm not exposing my ship and myself to this kind of danger. I'm getting out of here, and we can pick up.
I get the impression
later.
that he actually feels the weight of being responsible for what is one of the most important moments in history, and that he doesn't want to not make this work through any mistake of his own.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is maybe coming around to how important this is.
Because this is, like I said, this is just not at all what he wanted, even though, in a way, it's kind of like, yeah, they're getting killed. Let them die, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't want to trigger like an interstellar war, so yeah.
No, and I don't think after his chat with Gorkon that he's as comfortable with the idea that they just die.
Yeah, I think maybe in Gorkon he sees a possibility there. Splat.
Yeah, that in particular was probably a shot I wouldn't have kept because the blood looks so like Nickelodeon.
It's like, yeah, it's like Gunge from Funhouse or something.
Yeah. So this was actually the first moment where I was like, so he's the bad guy, but it'd be so much more interesting if he wasn't, and that was a genuine position he had.
Yeah.
Like you said, because everything points to the betrayal here. So part of why I like to see these movies beforehand is so that we can have these discussions. The two lads that got beamed back and fought, does anyone need to be on the console to beam them?
Yeah. I think, as far as I know, yeah, you do.
Bit of a problem being that Valeris is in the bridge, so I don't know who's doing that for them.
Yeah. Whether there's other conspirators that just, like, we're not aware of them or whatever. Yeah.
I was thinking,
because someone kills them later, and it might not have been Valeris. It might have been some other faction.
I assumed it was her, but fair, I guess. I like that. I did notice, by the way, because I'm a watchy person. I was like, Spock just put something on him. What the fuck?
Yeah. You can kind of see it, like it's sort of the same color as his uniform, but it stands out a little bit. It's kind of lucky that he had that tracking device just on him.
Yeah, I guess we have to just assume that it's kind of hard to justify exactly. It's just a contingency Spock had, I guess. It's a bit like you'd be like, have you always had that? It's just something you have.
Never know when I need to put a tracker on someone, I suppose. I would like to have seen more from Gorkon's daughter, because she ultimately is quite important later on in the movie, but we only get like one scene where she's making decisions, which the Klingon military guys are like advocating for different options, and she has to choose to go ahead with the peace negotiations. It's like, I would have liked to have seen maybe one or two more scenes with her, just to give us a bit more of a feel for who she is.
I quite like, by the way, I do consider it just strong writing that all the decisions Bones and Kirk make here are all used against them. Like they're all done in a altruistic way, but it doesn't matter. Once it gets to the court scene, it's just like we can recontextualize them all as you killing him.
Yeah. When they ask McCoy like what his medical status is, and he's like, well, apart from a touch of arthritis, I'd say pretty good.
Yeah.
Really flippant.
And just being like, was he alive when you entered the room, and were you drunk?
Yeah.
It's just like, fuck you. Also, hard to write a final poignant line for a character that's not had that much screen time, but I thought Gorkon's last line was perfect.
Yeah. Don't let it end this way.
It's so selfless. And it's so like it's a line that applies whether or not he was actually betrayed. Like as in like if he's
Because
looking
he
at the
doesn't know.
person,
Yeah, like
yeah. It's like please, like even if you just killed me, please don't let it end this way. Like he's desperate for the future of his kind, I would
he's a good
imagine.
man. He's a good man.
Well, hence why I was like, oh, I could have gone for more of him, but oh well. I guess part of the point is that he was short-lived. It's unfair.
He did more in this half hour of this movie than he did in the whole of Final Frontier. So
Yes.
that's it. Kirk and Bones have been busted.
Yeah, and I really quite like the idea in this film that you don't come across it in a lot of stuff, but there's a notion of peace, and it's not one rogue team that are sabotaging it. It's actually higher ups in all teams
Mm-hmm.
because they all have unique motivations for why they'd want the war to continue, both sort of ideological, moral, and then just industry to an extent with some of them, probably.
You do wonder, like, if this plan had succeeded, the conspiracy, would both sides just then have gone to war with each other and pretty much, the conspirators would just go their separate ways and say, right, well, it's every man for himself now. Like, may the best side win.
I suppose so, yeah. I think the connection there is going to be tenuous at best.
Because for the Klingons, like they can't just maintain this status quo of like a Cold War. They have to either go to full on war and try to defeat the Federation to get their resources, or give up. There's no in between for them now. Nice to see this ambassador guy again.
Yeah.
He's a really good actor. He delivers his lines with such gusto.
Oh, I was surprised to see
Kurtwood Smith.
Clarence Boddicker, right? Is for
Yep, Kurtwood Smith. Yeah, he's almost unrecognizable under all this makeup.
Well, what's funny is I saw him and I was like, "Is that I heard his voice?" I was like, "It is."
Yeah. It always makes me think of that like samurai guy from Kill Bill. The one who trained Kiddo. I really want him to like stroke that mustache that he's got going on.
Lee May, I think was his name, right?
Pai Mei.
Oh, Pai Mei, sorry, yeah.
So yeah, so Romulan. So we've got Romulans, Klingons, and Federation here.
Liar.
It's funny the one thing that makes me a little bit regretful about the movies is they never revealed too much about the Romulans.
Yeah,
they're quite an interesting faction. Like, I guess in the scheme of this, right, if you were to see the Klingons as being like the Soviet Union and the Federation is like the US, then the Romulans are basically China. Not really aligned with either faction, but generally hostile towards the West.
The way these films are made, and this is not a fault of really anybody other than just how it works, is like if they knew they were making 6 from the beginning, you could plan out a really big, all-encompassing story that takes advantage of the whole world, all the characters, and all that sort of thing. It's like, but they had no idea. They were making one at a time. They had different ideas at the time, and it's only once you see the 6 that you're like, oh, we didn't really do much for this or that. Or to be honest with you, I've talked about it on a couple of these videos we've made, but I've never been quite happy with how much work we've done for the rest of the crew. I love what they do with Kirk, Spock, and oftentimes Bones, but it does feel like everyone else only gets little moments when we could do a lot more for them, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've talked about that quite a few times as we've been going through like scenes here and there where you think, oh, this would have been great to give Uhura a little bit of dialogue here, like put into personal stuff or a bit more from Chekhov or whatever.
fine. I thought that was funny that this guy was like, kill them all, sort of thing, and the chancellor was on the other end, just like, what?
It's like, quick, hang up. So I think it's good to see these different perspectives within the Klingon faction as well. You know, they're very much not a unified cause either. Like, there's lots of different ideologies at play here.
Well, and that's kind of what I meant about how I don't feel like they were underserved in this film. I feel like we have a good understanding that they're a lot more complicated than we just want to kill everything.
Well, compare that to, you know, Star Trek 3. Like, generally we enjoyed that film, but the Klingons were not complicated there.
No.
They were just like, we want super weapon because we like weapons and we want to win at things.
Well, and it's cool because like, that's why I said like it's an alternate story, not necessarily a better one. Because Chang is like Kirk taken to his worst degree. It's like he's doing everything he can to foster as much hatred so that the destruction of each other can continue because fuck humans, right? From his perspective.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kirk is of course like fuck you guys.
Yeah.
That should maybe think of Doctor Doom.
I know, yeah. Like, why'd you have a giant claw thing for this?
Also, they're doing the thing. A lot of movies do this. Speaking the alien language, translator.
You know what? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that transition. I think everyone gets exactly what they're doing, and it's.
I really do appreciate it compared to not doing it at all.
Yeah.
It's especially because a lot of these actors, you like. Let them use their native speaking because that's the way they're used to it. If you have them doing that, there's less focus on their actual performance.
Yeah.
Not that they can't handle it. I just,
You might, well, you probably won't know this, but the actor there playing Kirk's defense lawyer is Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation.
I do know this.
Yeah, so they've rotated to the continuity that's like it's Worf's grandfather or something.
Yeah, it's cool.
I don't know why they decided to do that. It's like, Michael Dorn's just a really good actor for this sort of thing. Fuck it, bring him in.
I actually think there's something of a meaningful connection there, being that if he's a man who's interested in, playing the defense for the human side, and then his, grandson ends up being a member of one of the Enterprise crews, that I think that lines up somewhat.
No, I get you. I think that makes sense.
Sympathetic to humans, I mean.
So sorry, I'm like, for people that are watching this, it's like, why am I just laughing? It's like Chang's delivery is just great there. You have a singular wit, Doctor.
Someone I was actually a little bit surprised at, but also not surprised, and I was curious for your thoughts on, was no significant deaths in this film, as in like main cast. I thought maybe they would, considering we're reaching what they knew to be the end of the road, so to speak.
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose they wanted to go out on a bit of an emotional high, like a feel-good high, rather than like, oh god, we're mourning the loss of someone. Like, in Wrath of Khan.
I think it's a fair. I think a lot of people assume you should kill someone when you reach this sort of position, but it's like, no, it's a fair choice to not kill anybody. I totally get it.
Yeah, I think it probably would have left just a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. Like, oh, how come everyone else made it to the end apart from this one guy or whatever? So, yeah, well, I'm fine with it.
Whoever it would have maybe been, you can give them a pretty good scene for it that could capture a lot of who they were ultimately. But yeah, I think.
I mean, the bold move would be to kill Kirk, but no, they wait until the next movie for that. So,
yeah, that's one token you can spend essentially one time, and I wonder if maybe it would have been better spent here. I was glad he threw that line in because I was like, I feel like Bones would try and give a bit of why it makes no sense he would kill him.
Yeah. Tiberius Kirk. It's great to see these two face off against each other because Yeah, Christopher Plummer is a fantastic actor, and Shatner has his moments, and like it's great to test him against people like this. And I think he holds his own pretty well.
No fucking. The judge is such a creature. Yes, Jade.
He'd be like right at home in Lord of the Rings or something. Ooh, I wonder who accessed his personal log. Who was in his personal quarters when he was delivering that?
Yeah, I do like that they gave us something for that later. It's like, wait a minute.
I think Kirk just knows the game's up there. Like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to talk my way out of this one.
I get that he's his defense lawyer, but saying his political views are not on trial in this fucking hyper-political action, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. So there's such thing as establishing motive, you know? Plumber just tearing the shit out of the scenery there.
Yeah. Don't wait for the translation.
I think that's a reference to a real event that took place in the United Nations between the Soviet ambassador and some other dude. Yeah, same deal. Like, don't wait for the translation. Fucking answer me now.
Hey man, if I don't know the language, give me a sec.
Yeah. It's funny that they got the headset things here because universal translators should really be a thing that would help them here. Okay, terrifying goblin man. I will answer.
I was going to say he's like evil Gandalf or something.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that's a bit tenuous? It's like, okay, if we have total rogue elements within our crew who have just taken matters into their own hands, it's not really my fault.
I do wonder if it's a bit of like, he knows what's happening here. He knows that he's fucked.
I think so, yeah. And that's it. Busted.
Imagine they got executed. Like, god damn. Yeah.
Like they've all just got big glowing embers in their spears as well. Like,
yeah.
Just like, slam it down.
This is deliberate, right? They don't want to kill them in the form of an execution. They want to put them in the prison, then have them killed on an attempt and escape because it's a viable story for everybody.
I mean, really, they could have just executed them as soon as they got to the penal colony and just made up any story they wanted.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
God, it's nice to see Scotty again, actually. We've barely seen him in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, it's so neat because there's so much going through Spock's head about his responsibility, his choices, and what he's going to do next, and what he needs to be able to pull off, and how important all of this is. It's like, gotta make no bad decisions here. This was one of the many scenes where I was just like, yep, the writing in this is so much better than the previous movie.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying intelligent things.
It did make me wonder how they would account for this amongst the conspirators. You know, so it's like, we can go and to Starfleet and say, look, we've got a full complement of torpedoes, so we couldn't have fired them, so, like, it wasn't us. I
think that unless you present an alternative outcome, it's just like, yeah, I don't care how many fucking torpedoes you have. We saw what we saw. And their records show that they did, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, at that point, you might assume that they restocked to try and make it look like, but, like, they... Not if she was cloaked.
The eyebrow thing is great. I can't do that. I can't make one eyebrow go up like that.
I can. Maybe that's a genetic
son
thing.
of a bitch.
Yeah, like, I really like this because it's just like, this just sounds like Cope from the Enterprise. Like, we didn't do it. It was an invisible brand new weapon. Like,
yeah.
And yeah, a significant element of the solution to all of this is a lot of work.
Yeah. This is a great bit of deductive logic here.
And there's only so many places you can hide them.
Yep. And, like, it's good because she's being just helpful enough that, like, you don't necessarily suspect her right away, but also, like, she's just really confirming things that Spock already knows. So she's not, like, leading him on or anything.
Oh, like I said, if she'd been in, like, 3 other movies or something really sizable, I think I would have been thrown off as to who the bad guy is.
So if they had used Saavik for this role, or as originally planned, how would you have felt about that?
Again, if Saavik was to come back, I'd be like, just for this movie, I'd be like, that my suspicion would be on it. But had she been in, like, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is my suspicions are raised specifically because they are here when they're not usually here.
Yeah.
It's how it works in so many stories, and it's seriously difficult to overcome. But like I said, they did everything they could to try and make it feel seamless. I'm trying to think of other stories that do it, but, like, it's just a matter of, you know, what's out of place, even in a slight way. I know this actor. He pops up a lot.
Yeah. It's always so difficult to recognize them under the Klingon makeup. I do like this bit, actually. It's like how fucking horrible this place is.
Well, it's just a nice intro for the new prisoners. Like, look, this is a guy we're just going to kill by throwing him out here, so...
Do you think that guy had actually done anything wrong? They're just like, we just need a random dude to, like, be demonstration model for us.
Yeah, who's one of the weaker ones?
Larry, you're up! Oh. I do wonder as well, did they just, like, glue a horrible, like, monster mask onto a dog?
Probably strapped it, right?
Yeah.
I'd imagine, I don't know. Oof. Look at him. Not having a good day.
He's icicled.
So something that I think is a tad stretchy is, first of all, that they got to keep their Starfleet outfits. But if I buy that, which isn't impossible, that they would respect them in a sense of allowing them to keep it, like as a form of, maybe that's what you do with prisoners. I know that there's precedent for that in history somewhat. No way that they wouldn't be able to pick up what Kirk has on his back, you know?
I mean, this place seems pretty low tech.
Well, not this place. I'm talking about the Klingons when they let them go.
Right.
To this place, I would have assumed they do a full scan of them, and they would remove anything they have, right? Like any tools, any personal effects, and then they would have to notice what's on his back, or it would be picked up in a scanner because it gives off a frequency that can be detected from, I think you said, 2 sectors.
Yeah,
it's got to be emanating
something. I can get behind that. I love McCoy just pitching in there.
He's got it. And yet she's a character that I was enjoying, and then I thought a lot about what she does in this storyline, and it started to fall apart a little bit. We'll get to that a little bit later. For now, it's fine. Because what's funny, of course, when I was first watching this, I was like, how convenient for them that this person is so interested in helping them out. But of course, that's her plan.
Well, yeah, and like obviously the initial gambit is like she just wants help getting out of there, and she feels like they can help them.
Yeah,
and then you find there's more to it than that.
That all works. It's more so when they get to the escape. There's a couple of things.
Apparently, this is quite a controversial scene, like having a galley in Star Trek, because it had always been shown previously that they just use replicators to make their food, just like produce whatever they want.
Does this predate the replicators? Are you referring to TNG or are you referring to TOS?
No, TOS had them as well.
Well, that is weird then.
But I think I would liken it to a microwave. You know, you could use a microwave to make yourself a ready meal and it tastes like shit. But like if you want like good food, then you would make it yourself. And so I think perhaps it's the same here. Like maybe the officers eat better quality food than the rest of the crew.
This, by the way, I thought that was such a bold move, even from a writing and character standpoint, that I was like, why did they make sure that we understood that? And then I was thinking, it's definitely her, because they're trying to make sure we understand that she understands how she would have to orchestrate this plan.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this exchange.
Yep. Nothing wrong with the bloody thing.
And Spock going from playing along with like a ruse to just in no uncertain terms explaining the lie. It's so Spock. And then it could take weeks. Oh, it's great. And
because previously in Wrath of Khan we'd had like an exaggeration rather than a lie. Now it's just like it's an error. It's a good little transition here.
Yeah.
So again, I think in some ways this movie is like a little grand tour of Kirk's greatest hits. Like he's got to have a fight with an alien, like a fist fight. Like he seduces a beautiful woman, or seems to. You know, he has a space battle. Just all the classic elements of Star Trek. He has to all do it in one movie.
I read that apparently that was William Shatner doing that little stunt there.
Oh, really? Good on you, Bill.
What's sad about it is I think most, if not everyone, including myself, would assume it wasn't him because you can't quite make out his face. And it's like, well, then of course they'd use a stunt double for that.
Yeah.
Always gotta love it when actors are like, "Nah, I'll do it."
Yeah, I like that.
I wasn't entirely sure what was happening when he went.
I know, it was a bit of a
blue.
weird one. Like how his face goes more blue. He's sad.
Do you think when they said that was not his knee was originally enough, and then they were like, "Oh, we better make clear what we mean because people won't understand."
I'm genuinely baffled as to the mechanics of that as well. McCoy gets so many good lines in this. He's just like a crotchety old man. He's so like he does everything except say, "I'm too old for this shit."
What do you think of well, I guess the recast for the whole crew? Did you think any of them were like? What do you think was the best one for the J.J. Abrams?
Oh God, why did you have to say that name? I mean, probably Carl Urban would be the best. And I think it's just because he's doing a straight up imitation of Kelly.
Especially in retrospect, for me, it feels like he was just trying to do him.
But I like Carl Urban as well, probably the most out of those actors. So
yeah, and I can believe it was done with sincerity of trying to respect the character he's trying to play.
Yeah.
Do you think when they pitched it to those guys, they were like, we could make as many as 6 movies? Or were they like, this is a goofster thing that who knows how long it'll go for?
Well, I think when they did the motion picture, they had grand plans. Like they dumped a lot of money.
Oh, sorry, I meant the J.J. Abrams team of people.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they thought like this is going to be even bigger than the original. What a clusterfuck it is.
But yeah, well, it's so bizarre watching the first one on Into Darkness and then watching these 6 because they didn't capture Star Trek fucking at all.
No,
not even close. As someone who's obviously less familiar, it was like I remember people saying like Star Trek is not this fast paced, and it's like that's like not even close to all the issues with it.
Yeah. Well, you begin to understand my ire with it as like a guy who probably identified more with Star Trek than Star Wars growing up. Like to see that done to it, it was just a fucking insult. Just absolutely disgusting. Like stuff like this. There's so much to chew on here. There's so much, like so many interesting ideas that it deals with philosophically. The characters have really understandable motivations for what they're doing. And, you feel like you're going on a journey with them over the years because this is a long time these guys have been at it. Just God, how much does it take to just give you a smart, thoughtful script like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Star Trek was never about the space battles. It was never about people running around and doing action scenes. Those were just dressing on it.
It's so J.J. too because of the fact that it's like, how do we make every element of Star Trek that you're familiar with in some kind of iconic way even more better? And even with phasers, you'll see them just going off all the time, or beaming people. It's like I'm going to beam several people while they're falling. Isn't that fucking crazy? It's just like you suck, man.
The way I would liken it is like you go to places like Epcot at Disney, right? And they got like their world showcase, so you can like learn all about fucking Japan. But it's like Disney's Americanized version of like what Japan is versus like the real thing. That's the comparison. This is a little cameo from Christian Slater here, who literally just wanted to be in the movie because he was a big Trek fan. That was all it was.
I think I read that he is wearing the trousers that Shatner wore in Wrath of Khan or something like that. And he was just like, he felt so amazing to be able to do this, It's just like, oh, this is a fun little fan thing.
Honestly, if I was wearing the trousers that Shatner wore in Wrath of Khan, I'd feel powerful.
Yeah.
With the bell bottom, flared out bottom, bits of the boot and everything. Yeah, go for it. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Bit of
See, when I
Klingon
saw this, I was
blood
like, there you go. Paid off. That's what I mean. There is going to be evidence to find, and you just got to look for it. That's what everyone's been doing.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes quite satisfying when they don't get one sudden breakthrough. It's just like the culmination of a lot of hard work and just being methodical.
Well, yeah, and I assume that's why the two of them were killed, because it felt like people were getting too close with figuring out
they
more
were
and more.
inevitably going to get tracked down.
Yep. I just like that it's this recognition that, like, yes, this will take a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the logic is just, if there's anything to find, we're going to fucking find. Look at this guy.
He's got his metal detector and everything, yeah. Again, with the set design, they wanted to make a point of making the ship look just a little bit banged up and worn. Like, if you look at a lot of the metal paneling and stuff, there'll be like scuff marks and things on it. Like, this is a place that's been used for quite a while. And I think that's what Nicholas Meyer was going for. Just making this ship feel like a place that's been lived in and used.
I thought it was funny that they tried to frame Dax. I was like, would they want to aim for someone who the boot would fit? If they
well, that's the thing. They probably, like, because it's presumably Polaris, she had to act quickly, and it was like, oh, just pick the first locker that you see, and she happened to pick the one that's got a fucking alien with monster feet. Because, like, her reaction is like rolling the eyes, like, fucked up here.
I like that we're on the verge of escape, and what he's thinking about is, I kissed a guy? A monster guy? I don't know. He's so proud of himself.
I know, he's so happy. Yeah, look at that reaction from her. Like, oh, shit.
It's a good one, too, because it applies in both scenarios, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
On one hand, darn it, we're not finding this conspirator. Then on the other, it's like, oh, shit, they're getting closer.
It's kind of interesting that, like, the prisoners are somewhat unsupervised when they're doing all this stuff. They can kind of move around where they will.
I suppose there's a sense of you are trapped here, right? Like, so.
I mean, I'll tell you one thing, man. Like, if I had a bunch of my fellow inmates that were armed with those laser cutting tools, like, I know what I'd be using them on. It wouldn't be the rocks. let's just melt the guards and then get the fuck out of here.
I wonder if it's a similar setup to Alien 3. Not necessarily the same, just that there's a level of respect. I mean, the guards look like they were pretty assholey to the prisoners, so maybe not.
Yeah.
Like watching them fight and enjoying it and stuff.
So this character is kind of an interesting one because there's I can't remember what they're called, but like in Deep Space Nine, it establishes that there's like changelings that can shapeshift. But I think they can only shapeshift into something that's equal size. So what she's doing here, like turning from like a big monster into a little girl,
is amazing.
Yeah. Whether she's some completely different species that you've never seen before, not sure.
Didn't spend a lot of time on Rue Repente, but you get a good sense of how horrible it would be to be here.
Well, yeah, look at that dude. He didn't make it very far.
He gave it his best shot.
I mean, obviously, this is comparable to the gulags, I suppose, in Soviet Russia. It's out in the frozen wilderness. This was apparently a bit of a nightmare to shoot.
I could imagine.
I think was it Iceland or Greenland? I think they filmed this, but it was so cold that it killed the batteries on their cameras. So they only had a very short amount of time to shoot before they ran out. When I watch all these scenes, I just keep thinking, like, poor Bones. Like, he's so old and frail. Like, he's got to go through all this.
This close to retirement.
I know. I mean, he looks about 80. It's like, how did you not retire years ago? But, it's fine. It did make me wonder this scene, like, okay, you've got to the edge of a cliff, like, you're not going any further, clearly.
It is fun to have Spock and Kirk relying on each other's expectations of each other.
Yeah, well, they know each other so well. It's like, we kind of know what the other guy's going to do. But, yeah, it's great. It's friendship.
Like, one of my favorite bits of this is when they beam them out just when they're getting the information they need.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it.
Kirk's actually swearing as he comes in on the transporter, like... Which is kind of interesting that he knows that, because he didn't react to it at the time.
I guess that's because that's just film editing for us, right? Like, they had that conversation. Well, you'd think he would have just told fucking Bones about it at some point. Before now, I mean.
Yeah.
But, yeah. To be honest with you, when they get into the elevator, I remember Bones is directly behind him, and I was like, Bones will spot that, because that's unusual, a big old dog pimple patch on your back.
Yeah.
But, no. I did get a sense from this that this is like, these guys they're like Homer Simpson equivalents. They're just like,
oh yeah, this guy's like, like, he looks kind of drunk here, like, what the fuck are you?
Like, nothing ever happens, and he's just like, what is this? Nothing good.
Again, you can compare this to like some like low paid conscript at some border checkpoint in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. What the fuck? I can't believe it's so funny that they've got books, like actual physical books.
Yeah, so what is happening here? The universal translator is broken, which means...
No, the Chekhov says it would be recognized. So I guess
recognized, sorry, yeah.
In this universe, the universal translator will come out like Alexa or something. So instead they go for this really awkward like thing where she clearly doesn't speak a word of Klingon.
Because you see there it says Federation Standard, and then is there, because like what's happening on the screen? Is that a translation happening? What's the one below?
So like, for some reason they have to like manually look up what they're saying, which again the computer would be able to translate it for them, and it could probably tell them exactly what to say. You would have thought this is just done for humor.
Yeah. Well, I got that. I was just curious about the mechanics of it, because you would have thought they'd have a computer with all the languages in it.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
I know that Nichelle Nichols said that she wasn't a huge fan of the scene because she thinks that Uhura should be familiar with the language.
Yeah. In fact, in the J.J. Abrams version, she speaks better Klingon than actual Klingons because J.J. Abrams, but...
Well, I was actually going to say that I actually think there is a bit of an argument there as to whether or not she would be fluent in all languages as opposed to a communications expert in a tech way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think even if you're 100% fluent, like, Klingons are one of the major factions in the galaxy, so you'd probably at least have a passing knowledge of their language. So yeah, I can see why she wasn't a fan of this.
Yeah, I think a middle point would have been better, where she's fluent enough, but she needs a bit of help just with specific words or something.
Yeah.
Kirk's realizing something.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Hitting a woman.
Shatner just beating up women.
So this is where I had a couple of issues. One, they need to get out of here now if he's recognized that flare is meant for other people to find them.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's like if you go too far away from it, it's like you'll literally just freeze to death.
Well, that's better, right, than waiting for people to kill you. I assume. Another element of this that I find strange is this one's less of a problem. Is Kirk, if he recognized through deduction that this is clearly a plan on her behalf to betray them, maybe don't let her know.
I mean, yeah, like once she sets off the flare, like obviously people are going to be closing in on you, so you'd have to do something. So yeah, I'm not sure.
I feel like he could make anything up, right? He could be like, "Oh no, we need to get further outside of the shield because Spock won't be able to find us here." I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah,
something like
and
that.
I think like a few tweaks probably would have fixed this. With him just like trying to subtly dissuade her from setting off the flare and just being like, "Yeah, can we just keep going a little bit further or something?" And her insisting, "No, we have to stop here."
I like having Kirk fight himself though. That's fun. And
yeah.
When they rolled over Bones, he's just like, "Ah."
Yeah, you know when it's like, "I can't believe I kissed you," and the other one's like, "Must have been your lifelong ambition." Like, I feel like that was a dig at Shatner there.
This part's strange, though. There's actually details I enjoy about this. Okay, so first, one of them would have had leg irons while the other one wouldn't, which makes it clear who the actual Kirk is. Mm-hmm. So that's like a plus. Two, she actually aimed too high when she pointed. She's not used to the height of being Kirk. I think that was actually deliberate, not like a mistake on anything else. Then
that's actually I never would have picked up on the pointing thing. The leg irons I remembered, but no, that's probably quite a good detail.
Like Spock's just like, I'm so confused right now. What are you? Didn't I just save you?
I love that line from Chekhov as well. Do you want to go back?
Yeah, that's all great. But the thing I was going to bring up is it's really weird that the shapeshifter didn't use her normal voice when trying to express who she is. Instead, she used Kirk's voice when we know she can use any voice she wants. And she also didn't turn from being Kirk into something else. Do you know? Because basically,
that's true. Yeah. Well, she did say it takes effort, and maybe it
she was out of batteries.
To maybe you need a few seconds to like summon up the energy to do it, and she knew I have to try and deal with this quickly.
She's dead anyway because the guy when he shoots her says no witnesses. I think, but then I was like, but there's witnesses all around you. I assume you're okay with some witnesses.
Well, those guys are firmly on site, aren't they? Like, yeah, I think guards.
I think it all sorts itself out, so to speak, that no matter what she did, she would have been shot dead, so...
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Evil! I really enjoy how much we're believing that's the case because of Spock's logic, which is just that nothing else makes more sense. It has to be that, even though we've not seen that yet necessarily.
Yeah. It's quite convenient that they happen to run into the two guys.
I was going to say,
looking for right here.
Was there a reason for this, that they happened to be in the exact corridor where the two guys were killed?
No.
It's like, right, if I guess you would have found them anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd killed them, I guess I would try and hide them somewhere out of sight. It would
I
take
like
at
the
least a
plan
while
they
to find them.
I like the plan they come up with though, that they're not dead. They're you know, they're in critical
Yeah,
condition or
injured.
whatever in a room, and announced that. Though I will say the trap they set with the super dark room, I just I was wondering if she would pick up that it's a trap, you know.
I mean, it's a little bit like, ooh, this feels a bit suspicious, doesn't it?
And then of course,
Also,
if she
like, what if she
decided to
just
shoot,
went in there? What if she just went in there blasting as well? Like, didn't even hesitate.
well, yeah, if she shot at the beds a few meters away, it would have killed Spock and Kirk. Oh, shit. See, I think this part is like, it could be anyone. I was like, we know who it is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, they're kind of trapped because if it were anyone else on the ship, it would be a reveal that would make the audience go, oh, okay, who's that?
Well, just some random guy that we've never seen before.
I am Bill. I don't like
never
me.
suspected me. Then do a Ryan Johnson where you see him in the background of scenes that he totally wasn't in.
Yeah. A bunch of flashbacks.
Yeah.
It would be fun if she put the gun down and went, hello, I'm here to check that everything's okay. That's why I'm here. Yep.
And well, yeah, the thing is, she's got nothing to lose at this point. Like, there's nothing to stop her just killing him.
Well, so I thought that's
taking
what was
him
actually
hostage.
happening here was Spock is really testing who he believes her to be. And I don't think she's willing to kill him, right? That's what's happening here.
I mean, I assume so, yeah.
I think that does actually go against the ideology she has.
But she was totally fine with, like, sacrificing Kirk and letting him get killed on Rura Penthe.
That's true, though I imagine she values Spock more than anyone on this ship.
Yep.
Especially if he was a mentor to her somewhat. And he would represent everything that she believes in a good way. Hence why I get the impression that she is incredibly fucking sad that all this happens this way. I buy the certainly the mind meld sequence as being more than just her thoughts are taken away from her somewhat, that she gives them up in a sense of like, I fucked up here, I think. Did you ever read the novelizations for these?
I did not, I'm afraid, no. Was there... But did you?
Well, no. I don't read, but I'm aware of fun facts about them, which, by the way, novelizations can often make things so much better. Like I've heard Ryan talk about like parts of the prequels in the novelizations that make them a lot better.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could have inner monologues and stuff that explain a lot more than you can convey in a film, so that's very useful for filling in the gaps.
But apparently the novelization gives extra context to it's so funny to think about that what are considered uncharacteristically emotional reactions that Spock and Valeris give in this scene, being that Spock holds back from fully essentially just stealing everything in her mind for himself, and what's happening in the scene we're supposed to believe is he's providing her an opportunity to give it up herself. And she's like, the idea from the novelization is that she's overcome with shame, and so she loses her composure, and then she does give up what he's looking for, and that's why he's so grief stricken, is that it's confirmation she betrayed him completely.
That is interesting. Honestly, like, I interpreted it as just him using like increasing levels of force and power to essentially like
get that impression as well.
This information out of her mind. That's why she's
in
pain.
It's kind of a really remarkable scene because it's a payoff that you would have thought we've gotten by now. But not only am I under the impression this is the first time this has happened, but they both do so well, giving you everything you need to know about what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah, I love because I always took it as like Spock being shaken by the experience of like, I've never done that to someone before. I've never like violated their mind. So
he still did, right?
Powerfully.
I kind of like balancing out both of the the points of view of the scene, being that he's still taking this from her right now. But that I wouldn't be surprised at all if she comes to realize during this experience that this has gone way too far.
Yeah.
And I do also like everyone else just being sort of like, is this fucked up what we're doing here? But see, I think a lesser actress could have made this not work as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's just watching her reactions there. It's you can even see a tear in her eye. Like, god damn.
Yeah, I think what was supposed to have taken is he was gonna push really hard, but then stopped. But you can sort of take that both ways, I think.
Isn't it nice to see two actors that are just really fucking good at what they do? Just
well, so
doing this thing.
This to me is the key to understanding Spock's sort of emotional limits, and that J.J. Abrams, like, this is the best way to understand how much he fucked it up, because his version is Spock is screaming while punching everyone, right?
Yes.
But this version is like, you might be like, well, that wasn't very emotional, and it's like, that's kind of the point. Like, is the most you'd see from him is stuff like this.
Yeah, and like a tiny flicker of emotion for him is like a person breaking down in agony. Like for us, like that's the degree of
when the more reserved and consistent you are with that portrayal, the more meaningful moments like this can be. But when you have him at his most emotional, being like, punching people, then next time you want to have any kind of payoff like that, we're going to have to go back there again.
Well, it reflects across all the characters in the J.J. Abrams movies. It's all melodrama. Everyone's heightened. Everyone's hyperactive and screaming and shouting and running around. And like, you can convey so much more with a character just losing their composure for a few seconds than any amount of like shouting and screaming and stuff and big emotional outbursts.
Yeah, and it just gives you access to a lot more power, I think, as well. Now he's really got to think about all the stuff he's done.
I think for him as well is it's like he's placed his faith in like all sides being in good faith and being able to work towards this peaceful resolution, and he's realizing like all sides are just flawed. Like it's got so many factions within it, people like working in their own self-interest, who are frightened of the future, who don't share his noble ambitions for where this is all going. There's maybe a realization on his part that, wow, I really fucked up here as well, like assuming the best in people and failing to see the threats that were there.
It's almost the Kirk side of things, at least from Spock's perspective, is like, you had a particular job to perform, but now you've been framed in such a way that has been sabotaging the entire thing. But at the same time, you're not still quite in a position that I would prefer in terms of the interest in peace. But the complete backstab of someone he had ultimate faith in, more than likely, being one of the chief saboteurs of the whole operation. It's just like, geez, there's a lot to take in.
Oh yeah. I think as well, like for me, like coming at this from the point of view of a writer, there's so much more interesting stuff to explore with older characters who have so much more baggage and history behind them.
I despise the notion that once they reach like age 40, that's about it. We're done with them.
Yeah, that needs to fuck right off. Like, they become more interesting. These guys are fascinating because they have so much personal history. We've been through so much with them. And we see these guys, both of them, grappling with many realizations about themselves and the world around them, that they maybe have they've made undue assumptions that they need to rethink. That is a great thing to see, growth in an older character, that they're not above that.
You know what else? I think Hollywood as a whole really underestimate how much audiences love watching older characters dealing with all kinds of shit too.
Yep.
You know, you always assume like the young buck who can run around and do all kinds of crazy things and go on. It's like just because they're old doesn't mean they have to like. It's like Dial of Destiny, where people are like, well, what else is going to happen? What else going to happen with Han Solo? What else is going to happen with Luke Skywalker? Like, they're old now. And so what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like just because they're not physically cutting it so much now, like that doesn't rule them out. It doesn't make them not interesting characters.
Well, as you said, at times they're almost more interesting because we got to know them so well now. And it's quite a unique thing to have not, instead of having an old character in some movie being like, oh, I used to fight in this war and I used to do this thing, to have seen those wars with them and then have them talk about it later is a really unique experience.
Yep. This whole sequence I really like. It's a great way of, it builds up the tension. There's multiple different conflicts going on at the same time. You know, you got these guys trying to get to the peace conference, the battle against the bird of prey, the sniper who's preparing to strike.
Could you clear up something for me? Why is there no ships in orbit that would be detecting this battle happening?
Well, it's meant to be. This is quite a remote location that they've picked. And
well, they've got representatives from almost all civilizations, right?
Well, they do, but then the whole ethos behind it is that it's unobtrusive. It's meant to be low key, and so if you have a big armada of ships in orbit, it's going to tip off everyone in the galaxy. Like, oh shit, there's a big event going down here. So I think that was their thinking.
Even one ship per civilization, not even like an attack ship, just a transport of some kind. You'd think.
I mean, I think perhaps you could get away with one, and
then I would have thought the planet itself would detect this happening in orbit and be like, "What the fuck is going on up there?"
Yeah,
because this is insane. Like, there's an actual fight going on between two starships in a peace conference.
I mean, I could see how they wouldn't detect the bird of prey because it's cloaked. So, but yeah, they might detect the fact that there's a there's a Federation ship that seems to be exploding.
This is fun. Oh yeah, something I read was that they moved the consoles for Spock and I think maybe Uhura in order to have it easier to film them without it being like their backs are facing to the screen.
Yeah, I can believe that. I know they changed the whole like design of the bridge, the Enterprise, from the previous movie. Like they changed the lighting and everything to make it much darker because they felt like it was way too bright and washed out. And yeah, I could understand that they could change the seating layouts as well. Mm.
So does the notion of tracking impulse power exhaust get in the way of anything prior to this?
Well, not really, because they only thought of it here. And like they've never really encountered a bird of prey that can fire while cloaked before, so it was never so much of an issue.
But like it does like if you know a bird of prey is in the vicinity, then you could get them this way. No? Like even if they're not firing.
Because
I like it
potentially
as an idea. I just wonder if this should have been thought of before.
I mean, because in this case, like the torpedo is the thing that homes in on the gas. So I don't know if you can scan for it passively or if the thing has to seek it out. So like you could maybe argue like, well, you can't just go firing off torpedoes constantly just in the.
I guess what I'm getting at is that what we discover here is a hard counter to Birds of Prey's sort of big aggressive ability, which is to remain invisible, shoot, remain invisible, shoot, remain. You know, like it's a really powerful aspect. And what they crack here, Bones and Spock, is like this should be standard issue after this.
Yeah, I don't think Birds of Prey being cloaked it doesn't factor in so much in like the Next Generation. because they're not at war with the Klingons anymore, so it's less of an issue. And it might be that the Romulans, they've got cloaking devices as well. It might be that they developed a counter to that. Like, well, we've got a fucking filter that goes on our impulse engines that they don't emit anything anymore. There's always going to be a escalation, I suppose, in technology.
And yeah, I think maybe they should have halved the amount of quotes. Like it's.
I know, like he's just having the time of his life. Just it's weird when he spins around in his chair. There he goes. He's having the time of his life. I never quite understood the whole shields thing here because the shields seem to be doing fuck all.
I was actually going to ask, when the shields are up, is it like it dampens the power of the hit, but they still get hit? I thought that the shields deflect.
No, it's basically the shield will deflect the hit until they are out, and then you'll start taking hits to the hull. That's why this movie always seemed a bit weird. Like, why is it like getting damaged right off the bat when their shields are supposedly still up? I know that shot there that you had of like the torpedo going right up through the saucer section, that was the DP who really wanted to show that. He just like always thought it'd be a cool shot.
There's something fun about Bones performing surgery on a rocket.
Yeah. Lock and load. Oh, it's such a satisfying line there. Clenching his fist. Fire.
Yeah, this is pretty satisfying.
Oh, yeah. It's pounding the shit out of this thing.
And yeah, like I said, in that imagined alternate version, I could just see this same payoff, but with, rather than Sulu and Kirk, it's Kirk and and Chang against whoever sabotaged the entire thing.
Yep.
I feel like it would really capture the end of the Cold War being they work together, so that sort of thing. But I still like what they did.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Gorkon's daughter is the bridge between those two cultures. So it's just, like I say, it would have just been nice to get a bit more with her, so we can understand her a little bit more. That scene always made me laugh. Like Kirk must have been on a trampoline or something there.
Yeah,
like, dude was doing some gymnastics there.
Arrest yourself is such a no you.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
Yeah, go Scotty. It's funny, this scene was actually cut from the TV version. I remember as a kid, the bit where they peel the mask off him and it's a human underneath. Oh, actually, that's not in this one either.
I was about to say.
Well, yeah, they actually remove that Klingon's not a Klingon; it's a human. He's just wearing a face mask.
I will say the only thing that felt a bit awkward about this to me was just how much no one has any fucking clue what's happening. And then they clapped. It feels a little like I wish we'd done a little bit extra work to make sure everyone here knows what the fuck's going on.
I think you can assume the last 5 minutes of this movie are just pure, nostalgic fan service.
Yeah,
it's because they even pose there on the podium as if someone's gonna take a photo of them or something. But it's you know what, This movie has fucking earned it, and all of these actors and all these characters have earned it. So I'm not gonna judge them too much for it.
Oh no, I'm very happy with this being the final of the 6.
I do imagine him just holding in his rage and
Yeah.
hatred of Shatner for that scene.
Demands double the pay for every lie that relates to Sulu.
Yeah, that little callback to Star Trek 3 where he called him tiny.
Yeah, very hopeful ending.
Yep. Quoting Peter Pan of all things. I don't know, they're just like, maybe they're just going for the idea that Kirk's just feels like a young man again just for that little moment, for his final little joyride.
It's a really cool way of blending the old and new lines as well.
Yes, I'm glad you noticed that, actually. Literally riding off into the sunset.
Oh look, they're copying Endgame.
So it's funny watching this. I was like, some of these guys have got really cool signatures. Mine just looks like a fucking like retarded robot tried to draw it.
I have respect for anybody's signature that allows you to read their name. So many signatures don't.
Yeah. But what a beautiful ending. Like, honestly, I didn't even want to speak during that last little bit because it's so nicely done. I think if you have a crew and a cast with such a storied history and this is your attempt to give them a swan song, I think they did a really goddamn good job with this. You know, it's,
like I said, I almost want more, but I understand this is a really good way to end it.
I mean, as you pointed out yourself, yeah, there's definitely a couple of flaws in terms of like some of the mechanics of the plot against them and so on. But overall, like, I'm willing to let it slide a little bit because I think they redeemed the franchise after Star Trek V, and they provided that satisfying conclusion to it. And for me, yeah, it was a great way to say goodbye. And I think it's happenstance, I suppose, that it mirrored what was going on in the real world, that this was coming along at the same time that the Soviet Union was collapsing and the Cold War was coming to an end. The real world was changing quite rapidly as well. And I think those two things just align perfectly to just give you the perfect way to say goodbye to that crew, that original crew, and transition Star Trek into the world that we now knew in The Next Generation. So it worked out just really well. Just perhaps the stars aligned a little bit on that one.
It's just funny, that notion of the odd numbers are the weaker ones and the even numbers are the stronger ones.
Yeah. Don't know how it comes about, but I don't fully buy into that because, like I say, I'm a big fan of Star Trek 3. I think it's quite underrated as a sequel.
Well, I mean, half of it is just people want that to be the case. It's a funny thing to say, isn't it? Especially with 6 films.
But yeah, I would have, I know you said like I'd like to see more of that. Obviously, the fact that the actors were getting older and stuff, like that was pretty much time for them, I think, to retire and just
and just the nightmare that was getting these films together anyway. I imagine that the older you get, the less willing you are to deal with all of everyone, right? You have to get so many people together and you have to satisfy all of their needs.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, God, they were just really lucky that none of them had died like in real life, because by the time they did that last one, particularly like Jimmy Doohan and DeForest Kelley, they were pretty old. They were already getting on a bit, so it's nice that they were able to like round this out and do that final one. But apparently as well, like Shatner and Nimoy had arranged that DeForest Kelley would get a pretty generous payday from this one, because I think more than anyone, they recognized he wasn't going to be doing any more movies really, so they wanted to give him a nice comfortable retirement, which I think is pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a shame that they did Star Trek Generations after this, but we won't talk about that.
That plenty of people will be like, you guys should watch that one. Give opinions.
Yeah. Maybe one day. But honestly, like, it's quite I'd be content to bring our Star Trek arc to a close, at least for now, with this. And I think it's a nice way to bow out.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah, I get you. It's a really cool formula in a broad meta sense, Star Trek. The movies themselves, it's cool that we explored several options, not only in tone but also in sort of story structure. And
we've run the gamut with these movies, haven't we?
Put them all in different kinds of situations. Like we've talked about how there's opportunities they could have taken, and there's certainly installments that could have been a lot better. But I feel like we were better for it having these in the world. They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like, I'm really pleased that I was able to share this with you, and we could watch it together. Not to get all soppy and sentimental, but like I knew that like Star Trek wasn't your thing necessarily, and you didn't have much exposure to it. But I just had an inkling, like, I think MauLer's going to appreciate at least some of these movies. I think they've got a lot of the things that you enjoy about good storytelling, and yeah, hopefully it's given you a little bit of entertainment while you've been watching it.
It's been a bit of a cultural gap for me, right? Because I could have seen a lot of Star Trek. I just didn't sort of run into it in my earlier years. Like in terms of everyone's got their own stuff, and just Star Trek is just this huge thing that I never really watched any of. But now I'm already catching up. I'm getting there.
Yeah,
all 6 movies done, which I know that several Star Trek fans haven't seen some of these films, which is kind of crazy depending on who you talk to. I know a lot of people who are just mainly TNG era fans.
Yeah, and I think to some extent, because TNG was such a big force in like reshaping Star Trek, and like really the whole TV side of things very much shifted to that era. Maybe to some extent, the original movies got a little bit sidelined and overlooked. And I think that's a crying shame, because, man, this is so integral to like the history of Star Trek. And if nothing else, you're missing out on some really good storytelling and some great performances, some great action sequences. Just, what you want in Star Trek, I suppose. It's definitely tonally very different from the Next Generation era. Just that was much more in line with Gene Roddenberry's original vision. But like, I think these are all just different ages of Star Trek, different eras and different interpretations of it. But I don't think this is inconsistent with the world as Star Trek evolved.
There's a lot of growing pains and alternate interpretations. And yeah, I find Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country, they would be peak to me in terms of what this can achieve.
if it's any consolation, you've pretty much seen the best that Star Trek has to offer now, so you could probably stop there.
Just don't watch anything else.
Yeah. Well, watch TNG. I'm sure you get a lot out of that, actually.
I mean, to be honest with you, I am partially tempted to watch the J.J. Abrams ones now, knowing everything that I do, to see how much he got wrong.
Oh, I think it'll just make you really angry. No.
Yeah, that's inevitable. But I mean, it's said and done, and no one likes it anymore. So,
I mean, that is true. Yeah, rightly so.
It's almost like a relic, because I happen to feel like the legacy of even stuff that was made in the 60s and 70s that's being remade, it just outshines the new stuff so significantly that add another 10, 20, 30, 40 years or whatever, and people will start to forget they even happened, right? Hopefully, anyway.
I think so, yeah. Like,
kind of like loads of people don't know that The Thing got a prequel. You know what I mean? It's like, what? It's like, yeah, that happened.
Well, we talk often about cultural footprints that movies make, and it extends way beyond the box office for the immediate release. Like, it's how interesting is this film, and how much does it stir conversations months or even years after its release? That's the real hallmark of an interesting movie. And yeah, things like the J.J. Abrams Trek, it's essentially been forgotten already, I think. Whereas this still is living on, I think, and going and still going strong.
Excuse the expression, but it's trying to cling on to kind of relevancy desperately by being like, "There's a fourth one, there's a fourth one, there's a fourth one. Don't forget it. We're still here."
No one cares. I think even the actors are checked out of it at this point. They've got no interest. But, well, I mean, for the people who are watching this, that was Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country. It was a real pleasure for me to rewatch it, because it's been a year or two since I've last seen it. It was nice to see it again. It was nice to share it with the long man and hear that he was pleased.
Good shit. And I would not only would I recommend the two best ones, but I would also probably just recommend the whole thing, even 5. Just watch the story from 1 to 6. Fuck it. Just appreciate what they managed to pull off.
I think even 5 provided us with entertainment. Probably not in the way that Shatner intended, but yeah.
I'm even a defender of the first one, okay? There's ideas in there.
There is ideas, yeah, there is. But, well, anyway, for you guys that are watching this, I hope you enjoyed our little watch through it. I hope you enjoyed our journey through the world of Star Trek. And for now, at least, that probably brings it to a close. I think MauLer and I have got plans for watching other things together. It might end up coming out on his channel, so stay tuned, especially to MauLer, because I imagine that's where it will end up coming out. But I'm looking forward to doing other things with you and tackling other genres, other franchises, and so on, because I think it's nice to do stuff like this.
It is.
But for you guys watching this, for now, at least, that is all we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye.